Okay, once again, thank you for joining us for an important conversation on bridging the gap in family engagement. My name is Lawrence Witherspoon, and I am the director of the Center for Family Voice at Groundwork, Ohio. The purpose of this webinar is to explore strategies in ensuring, enhancing, and supporting meaningful engagement of families at the system level of care. We will be discussing how to bridge the gaps between community providers, families, to ensure family participants have a voice and the community providers represent the race, ethnicity, language, income, education level, and geography of those who receive services from community organizations. We bring an impressive lineup today for this discussion. But before we actually formally introduce the keynote speaker and the panelists, we have a few housekeeping items. First, the closed caption option is available for you on your personal Zoom controls if you choose to use those. And also feel free to use the chat if you have any comments or questions during the session. And also, you may access our center's reports and materials, including this presentation at groundworkohio.org, family voice. So I just want to introduce you to our team, our center's team. First, of course, you do recognize me, Lawrence Witherspoon, the director of the Center for Family Voice, and then Lizette Arnold, who is our Family Engagement Associate. The Center for Family Voice at Groundwork Ohio is a center of excellence dedicated to authentically engaging Ohio's parents and families in the policies and practices that impact healthy development of their children. The center is an ongoing multi-year learning process focused on eliminating disparities in systems that serve pregnant women, young children, and their families. The center will drive programmatic policy and practice changes at the local, regional, state levels by integrating the family voice into the decision-making process for Ohio families, the Ohio Family Serving Systems. Real quick, I just want to show you a brief video that gives a little bit more insight to the Center for Family Voice.
We're excited to create the Center for Family Voice at Groundwork Ohio, an initiative designed to ensure that families' experiences and their ideas inform how governments and communities support young children. We're dedicated to creating a center of excellence that authentically involves Ohio families in transforming policies to ensure more children are born healthy, meet important developmental milestones, and get the early learning and interventions they need. The goal is to be better at building the foundation that sets up children for success. We are passionately committed to equity, eliminating the entrenched disparities in systems that serve pregnant women, young children, and families. The center will be an authoritative resource for policymakers in Ohio and across the country who are committed to listening to families. We will empower families by increasing their advocacy skills, expanding their connections, and building their confidence. We will inspire stakeholders by demonstrating the impact of giving families the chance to co-create solutions, honoring family contributions, building inclusive cultures, and we will develop partnerships that value families' experiences. Finally, we will use these strategies to transform policy to improve outcomes for families and their young children. The Center for Family Voice. It's a place where families have a real say about how we support them.
Okay, so thank you. We want to thank you for taking the time out to watch that video that gives you a little bit more insight about what we're doing here at Groundwork Ohio, specifically the Center for Family Voice. In 2019, after a 6-month environmental scan, we established 8 core commitments of this center. We have spent most of the past year planting the seeds to fulfill each of these commitments and have a focus on a great deal of time on one part of our center's work, which is the Family Action Network at Groundwork Ohio. So a lot of our focus has been on that. And at this time, I am going to turn it over to Lizette as she shared more about Groundwork Ohio's Family Action Network.
Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Lisette Arnold, and I'm the Community Engagement Associate here at Groundwork. So just the introduction of the Family Action Network. So at the beginning of this year, well, it's been years in the making, but Groundwork Ohio built a coalition of families and community partners across the state to create our Family Action Network. The Family Action Network is committed to ensuring families are valued, respected, and heard, building a powerful and diverse coalition of Ohio families from across the state, and investing in the leadership of families and providing opportunities to engage in policy decision-making. Oh, sorry, my slide isn't going. Okay, so just a little bit about who the Family Action Network is. So the Family Action Network is comprised of 65 family ambassadors and 40 community ambassadors from across the state. In May 2022, after a series of custom trainings, we were able to bring all of our ambassadors, including their young children, to the Ohio State House to have a seat at the table with their policymakers. This short video from the event should put everything in perspective and show you just how invigorating the day was.
It's time for Ohio policymakers to listen to families, to really hear what parents and caregivers need to help their babies, toddlers, and preschoolers thrive. That's why Groundwork Ohio launched the Family Action Network, bringing nearly 700 Ohioans together at the State House. Parents, grandparents, foster parents, kinship caregivers, their young children, and community partners met with lawmakers to share their stories.
Too often, families aren't included in the policy-making process that deeply affects their lives and the lives of their young children. Groundwork Ohio is committed to changing that.
I'm so proud to stand among you and celebrate your strength and ask policymakers to listen to you. You are the experts of your own lives and the lives of your children.
You care, and you came here today to show that you care, to show people like myself who are policymakers that there's a face and a voice and a feeling behind children's issues in Ohio.
Groundwork is proud to be creating the Family Action Network, a diverse coalition of citizens from across Ohio. They're coming together to advocate for families and children based on their experiences and to create policy recommendations. Our laws and systems don't always benefit families. They aren't created with input from the people who live with the results.
We've gotten to know your hopes and your dreams for your families and for your children. And I can tell you, as someone who used to work in this building, I spent 10 years in the Ohio General Assembly, I have never seen a crowd of this many infants, toddlers, and preschoolers and their families here assembled. We are investing in you and your leadership and wanting to create opportunities for you to engage with policymakers on the things that matter to you and your families.
When we see you and we hear your voice, it keeps us grounded, it helps keep us focused, and it absolutely keeps us motivated.
Far too often, the voices of those in need of advocacy and support via policy and resources are silenced. No one will know your family and your children better than you.
We are your voice. Don't let us forget it. We're not government, we're your voice.
It's just a joy to see this many wonderful families and children in the atrium at the State House today. It is your house, it's the people's house.
These are your families, they're your stories, and it's your State House.
Okay, so thank you for watching that video. So if you would like to learn more about the stories of our families, their hopes and their hurdles, and more of what the center has learned about this critical work, please check out our latest report, Gathering Around Our Table, and you can find this report on our website. Now is the time to introduce our keynote speaker, Joy Spencer, Executive Director of Equity Before Birth from North Carolina. I had the opportunity to hear her speak at a conference, and her community engagement expertise blew me away, and I had to get her for Ohio. And I am honored that she is joining us to share our work. Sorry.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I likewise am honored to be here, and am going to share my screen in just one moment so that we can get started. So again, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here with you all. In 1 second, do you all only see my slide now? Yes. Okay. So here to talk about strategies to improve family engagement. As Lizette said, my name is Joy Spencer. I am located in North Carolina and lead an organization called Equity Before Birth. This is a brand new organization, and I am the first executive director, and I have set out to intentionally center our families. We are a community-rooted organization, which takes it a step further than being community-based. So physically based or located in the community. We are an organization that I consider to be of the community. So the folks who are experiencing the challenges are in leadership in our organization and helping to navigate those challenges in real time alongside community members who are also experiencing that. So very happy to be here with you all today. And I just want to start off by reminding folks that families are people. And I know that sounds like weird to say, but just wanted to ground us there. Families are people, and people are always going to remember how you make them feel. So being genuine with your approach, showing respect, respecting families and parents' expertise, acknowledging that everyone is an expert at something. We are all not good at everything, but everyone is an expert at something, and acknowledging that in the space of family engagement, the families are the expert is going to be very important. Not looking at families as a deliverable or a number or a tick mark to get us closer to outcomes that get us more grant money, but really centering families as people. That's where I want us to start. So we're going to talk about building trust and valuing lived experience and intent and impact. But again, I wanted to ground us around the work. So real recognize real. And what I mean by that is authentic family engagement is more so a lifestyle. It's not this really easy cut and dry clock in 9 to 5 position, and then you clock out and you suspend your values around families. If we are aware that there are people who view the work in this way, and it is my strong opinion that that is not as effective. My first, kind of tip or strategy is to really be intentional and consider who it is that you assign to work with your families. If it is someone who puts on their mask from 9 to 5, and acts as if they respect and value families, and then at 5 p.m. they take off that mask and they're on Facebook saying, "Ooh, families are so lazy and parents don't show up and all they do is complain," that's going to be recognized, and that is going to trickle down into your program, and that is going to cause families to not want to engage as much. Because the truth, in my opinion, always comes out. And so if families know that you don't really see them as experts and don't really value their presence, they're going to be, less prone to participate. So let's be very mindful of who it is we are assigning to work with our families, because that in and of itself can go a very long way. And I wanted to highlight that word authentic. I said authentic family engagement is a lifestyle. Putting authentic in front of that word engagement takes it to a new level for me. Or engagement could be the survey you sent out via email. Engagement could be, hey, I put a flyer up in the library. Engagement could be, hey, we had a table at this event and no one, came to our table. But authentic engagement is making sure you put in that intentionality, the act of intentionally pursuing a connection with the person. And the part that really sticks out is that it attracts and captivates and involves their interests. So in order to engage with families in a way that includes their interests, you must first know what their interests are, right? In order to get started. The picture you see on the screen is actually a picture of our organization taking families to a chocolate factory tour. What we do is we cover the costs for families to have access to pregnancy-related services like a doula or transportation to a prenatal care appointment or a childbirth education class, right? But in order to meet families where we are, we also knew how important it was to just kind of meet families in a comfortable environment and cater to their interests. And who doesn't like chocolate? And so we took our families to a chocolate factory. Everybody brought their kids, and we didn't talk about work. We just used that as a time to build trust, build relationship, and really let folks see how we wanted to serve families. And so with that in mind, as we are in our respective roles, thinking about some folks may be, well into their journey with family engagement. Some folks may be considering how to implement more practices that lean towards family engagement. Some folks may be saying, should we start to include families? That's not something we really, really do. I just encourage everyone to really think that through and identify your commitment so that you can do what you say that you are setting out to do. Say what you mean and mean what you say. If family engagement is going to be an integral part of your programming and of your organization, it is really time to consider what leadership and what staff, would comprise that outreach team. What funding are you going to allot in order to execute this work? Resources are absolutely needed. This is work that we are asking our families to do. And so if we think about it in those terms, it's illegal to ask people to do work for free. And so we need to allocate resources in a budget to that. And then be mindful of what you say. Some people say, hey, we want to engage families and we're going to help make sure we get you all the resources you need. We're going to help make sure you don't experience this anymore. And we're going to, eradicate poverty. Whoa, if that's a large claim, right? Be mindful of what you say you are going to do for families so that we can be honest and do what we say we are going to do. If it is family engagement, you must also consider maybe transportation, consider childcare, consider their kids. If it is only parent engagement, that's a little bit different. Maybe you don't have to, consider the kids as much because you're only engaging with the parents. So long story short, just assess what your commitment is. What resources do you have to allocate towards the initiative and the project? What time do you have? What staff capacity do you have? What barriers exist that may kind of be a challenge for families to participate? And how can you eliminate those barriers to set up your program for success as you are looking to engage families? Which brings me to my next tip, which would be to assess your program culture. Does your organization or entity have a culture or a space that is already welcoming for families? What is the culture of your org and your program? Do you have a traditionally rigid culture that's very focused on time-bound deliverables and tasks? What I wanted to pull out was assessing whether your program or culture is more transactional or more relational. Anyone who's worked with families has heard that trust, relationships. Those are the two big words that come up. Families are very communal folks. They want to kind of get in and see how it feels. And so if you don't have an org or program culture that is welcoming to more relational practices, I would consider to put some extra thought into that and to think through how maybe you could make some changes, implement some changes to move away from just transactional means of working with families into relational means of working with families. Transactional things seem to be outcome based and they're short term because they're really time based. They're focused on getting information out or receiving information in. They're very linear, like we're going to start at point A and get to point B. And the measures of success are often like real heavy reliant upon numbers, outcomes, percentage first ideology. And just keeping in mind, we have to prove our impact. We have to, document our outcomes. We want to make sure that we are doing our job well and measuring the effectiveness of that. But if you enter into a transaction, hey, fill out this form, receive this benefit, understand that you're probably going to lose families after that transaction ends. And then you're going to have to kind of restart the engagement process in the next year when it is time to kind of regain that same feedback. And you may not retain as many families because you don't kind of know what they've been going throughout that whole entire year that you all were not in contact. When we're looking at a program culture that's more relational, folks are leading with listening. They have a more long-term engagement plan. It's not this just like one-off event or this one-off, sign this letter, sign this piece of paper type of initiative. There's a lot more flexibility. We understand that kind of progress and relationship building isn't always linear. It might go up and circle around and come back. We may hit a low point and then hit, one of our highest points. And it's about transformation, transforming the way families see their role in policy, in advocacy, in creating procedures that guide the way services are given to them. It is very people first, supportive, and the way we measure success is going to be a little different. You will hear some anecdotal successes that we maybe can't put, neatly into words. Again, we try to be very intentional about building relationships with the families that we serve. So the picture you see here is our Mama's Night Out. We took mamas to Dave and Buster. Said, leave the kids at home. We'll give you some food. We'll give you a game card. Let's see who's the best basketball player. I'm a decent gamer, shooter. I don't know if you could beat me. Let's try it out, right? And we just took that time to build those relationships. Within that meeting, we had moms that we sponsored a midwifery home birth experience, talk to expecting moms who were on that same trajectory to receive a home birth experience and kind of help them, mentor them through that. We had new moms speaking with expectant moms about this is what the first, couple months are going to look like. Oh, call this person. They had these great resources for me. Who's your doula? Oh, girl, that was my doula too. Let's talk. And so those are the type of connections and impact that you may see out of these efforts to build trust and relationship. And those things are going to stick with the families and with the program for a long time. I recently saw us be tagged and mentioned in a Facebook post where a family was celebrating the second birthday of their child and they had invited their doula. They said, this doula is now part of my village. It was a doula that we had connected them with and covered the cost of that service. And now that doula is a part of that family's village. They have that constant resource to go to. They have a new friend, and the baby has a new auntie. And that's priceless, right? We can't neatly measure that, but we know that it is improving the quality of life for our families and enabling them to thrive. And so some things to consider when working alongside families. First, just listen. You can't know what families need without listening. We often are very passionate and we accidentally come in with a savior complex and say, oh, if you guys only had this one thing, I'm sure you would do better. And sometimes we miss the mark with that because if we're not there and if we're not harboring the same experiences, we may be missing some parts of the perspective that they have and may not have the full picture. So So listen, what do families need to participate in your initiative or program? Why have they chosen to participate? What aspects of this particular initiative are important to them? Are they really looking forward to traveling to a new part of the state because they've never been outside of their city? Are they really looking forward to connecting with other parents? Like, why are they here? And then we can play into those interests and create that authentic engagement that really caters and captivates what they're already interested in. Meet families where they are. You won't exactly know where they are until you listen, right? You know, do they have childcare needs? Do they have transportation needs? Are half of your families already going to the same church on Sundays? And can you meet with them for 30 minutes after that? Are half of your families enrolled in the same school, same daycare settings where you could potentially go to a community meeting or event that's already in existence and kind of augment that experience? And instead of always having families to come to you, we sometimes don't know. Families are catching Ubers and buses and riding their bikes, and it's sometimes really challenging and difficult to even, you know, take those extra hours out of our evening and shake up our dinner and homework schedules. But we want to engage, and so, you know, after, you know, how can you to help meet families where they are? Be really transparent. Unfortunately, there are instances where data is collected from families and families aren't realizing that their personal information is being given to maybe health insurance carriers or government entities that they may have wanted to do some extra consideration before sending that level of information to that level of folk. And so it's really important to be honest with families, be transparent, make sure they know exactly what they are participating in, why, what information is being collected, where that information will go, and how that information will be used. Because let's face it, a lot of the information that we're gathering is going to help us sustain our programs and create deliverables that we're able to brag upon to get additional grant funds and additional investment. And so at the very least, we can make sure that families know how they are contributing to our organizational success, and that will, you know, help them get that buy-in. And last but certainly not least is judgmental acceptance. When you listen to families, you're going to hear some things that are foreign to you, that are not common in your culture, your practice, your household. And I encourage folks to turn to curiosity in those moments instead of turning to judgment. Seek to understand, seek to figure out why people are doing this. Why are you feeding your kid Cheetos every time I see you? That might not be an appropriate question, but instead of judging that parent, you may find out that they only feed their kids Cheetos that one time a month during this one meeting because they have to stop by the store and able to make it to your meeting on time, and their kid will be hungry if they don't. And maybe it's in a neighborhood that's a food desert and they don't have a grocery store they can stop to, and so they had to stop into that bodega and get the bag of chips, right? But aim to suspend your bias and your stereotypes once you've listened and learned information. Turn to curiosity, see what additional information that you can gather to help meet families where you are. And I really encourage folks to question yourself about why you have questions or why you may have judgments to suspend. Assess your ability to be without bias when working with families and trust families. Question why you may have some hesitation or reservation in trusting the community members or family members that you are working with. We know trust is very important. We know that trust is going to be really integral when it comes to getting family buy-in. So if families trust you, trust your program, trust your organization, they're going to say, oh, I can't wait for third Saturday at 11 a.m. to come back around so I can get up with my folks, right? And so along with making sure you're honest about whether you trust families, because real recognizes real, right? If you don't really trust me, I'm going to kind of get that vibe and sense it. Need to make sure we're doing what we can to facilitate the trust building among families and between families and your organization. So one of the best ways to keep that retention, to keep families coming back month after month, week after week, year after year, is to really make sure that they trust what it is they are participating in. So 4 areas that I urge folks to consider when trying to build and assess trust is like, the first thing is like a vibe check. We literally have this thing at Equity Before Birth, like, do they pass the vibe check? Are they going to be a good collaborator, or are they going to be a faux laborator? They just want to use our name for clout, right? And we literally say, how do these folks make us feel? Like, are they trying to tokenize our work, or are they really genuine in supporting our work? And that I think families kind of ask that line of questioning to themselves as well. Like, does this feel icky to me, or are these folks really here to uplift my voice and power and help me? This means they're going to be looking at how sincere you are, how many judgments or criticisms you put forth. Do you all have any common shared experience? Like, do you really feel where I'm coming from? Or are you just, smiling and nodding just because this is your job and you're clocked in? Are you really trying to get to know me, build relationships? Are you really trying to remember my name? Remember maybe how old my kid is, or is this just, we are here for this transaction and we move on? Shared values. If the folks running and facilitating these initiatives share values with the families, that's going to create more trust and buy-in from your families. They are going to have less questions around, is this in my best interest? Because they know that their end goal aligns with your end goal. Value also in this capitalistic country means paying people. We show our value by giving people money. You're getting paid to host the meeting. You're getting paid to bring these families together. These families are sharing expertise with you and should also be valued. We, unfortunately, probably won't have the resources to value them at the level that they deserve, but valuing folks' time with stipends and incentives could go a long way. We have to remember that families are forfeiting their dinner time to bond with their kids, time to get their laundry done, their house clean, to give you feedback that will most likely result in thousands, if not millions of dollars to sustain your organization. And so absolutely, we need to show that we are valuing families' time, not to mention inflation, not to mention coming out of being in whatever they call it, the pandemic that hit every family really, really hard in the pocket. You just, meet people where they are and help folks maximize their participation. And again, like I mentioned before, how are you referencing and interacting with and speaking about families when you think they're not listening? After you clock out, after you are not recording, after, you have, closed your laptop for the day, are your values around families and family engagement still in line with family values? Important for building trust is accountability, encouraging folks to take responsibility for any implications of their behavior. We'll talk about intent versus impact in a little while. Acknowledge any behaviors that may be associated with your presence. Maybe like you didn't do it, and that's understood, but you may be, for example, an elected official who really, really cares about family engagement. But if you are part of a legislature that has consistently failed, not respected, not listened to families, families may be carrying that experience with them. And in order to get past that, sometimes it's best to just acknowledge it up front. Hey, look, we have not served you in the best ways, and that is why I'm here. I want things to change. But just saying, hey, I'm not one of them. I'm never going to do that. Sometimes that doesn't help as much as we think it helps. Sometimes we just need to acknowledge, own the harm that's being done, acknowledge it, and clearly state a path for moving forward. And sometimes you have to kind of make some apologies that aren't on you, that aren't your fault. But sometimes families just need to hear that. Like, what? This entity destroyed your whole entire neighborhood. I am so sorry that happened. What support is it that you need from us? Is there a path forward? Can we move forward? What, would help us to repair this relationship? Sometimes we just have to own it and take accountability for any trauma, any pain that families may feel so that we can move past it. And then I want us to consider consistency. So are you reliable? How do you show up? When do you show up? Are you only showing up because you need something? Every October, folks knock on my door, want me to vote. And then they disappear in November, in December, January, February, March. I don't hear from y'all. And then y'all pop back up in October, ask me to vote, right? That lack of consistency could create a lack of buy-in, could create a lack of engagement, could have folks kind of feeling a little used, like, dang, they don't even check on me until they need something. Y'all have friends like that, family members like that? Like, dang, they never call me until they need something. Like, don't be that person with families. Only call when you need something, and then you don't even, hardly have things to offer back, right? All of that really matters. So consider how consistently you are showing up, how you are showing up, and why you are showing up. And these things will help build trust with families and get that authentic buy-in. And then when it comes to valuing lived experience, like I said, we value things in a very kind of particular way in this country. When we value someone, we respect them, we trust them, we pay them well, and we give them decision-making power. We put them in a leadership position. So how are you doing those things with families throughout your whole entire organizational culture? Having the family engagement piece siloed off isn't best practice, in my opinion. If you want family engagement to permeate through your organization, we should be trying to make sure that we do that through and through. So how is lived experience valued and shown in your staff and in your leadership? How is lived experience collected or at least assessed, valued, and shown throughout your board? How does your board have that pulse on the ground and know what's going on with the folks that you serve? How do your policies reflect your commitment to value lived experience? What barriers have you intentionally alleviated? What standards are in place to make sure that, hey, when we, hear this level of feedback or these opinions, we'll definitely take heed to it and do what we can to implement changes to eliminate those barriers. Same with your bylaws. For example, at Equity Before Birth, our bylaws require that our board contains Black birthing people, folks with lived experience of having a baby as a Black person in America and raising that child. We need that perspective in order to make sure that we are rolling out services that are culturally affirming. And so do your bylaws reflect your commitment to value families and to value lived experience? So let's just think about the different ways that we can make sure we are operationalizing family engagement, making sure that it's not a tokenized effort, but it's an effort that also yields some power and has some sort of decision-making or has some sort of official policy that addresses the need to make sure we're centering families. And so once we have considered, all of these things and we're like, yay, we are talking to families, we are engaging families, this feels good, this feels right. We still have to double back, and every program kind of requires like an evaluation, right? You have some sort of synopsis, an annual report, a summary of what you have done. And in this evaluation stage, when working with families, it's very important to assess your intent versus your impact, because they could be completely different. We intend to go out into the community and give diapers and give wipes, as you see in these pictures. Let's say we show up with a table of love diapers, and everyone in this community, their babies are allergic and break out into hives when they have love diapers on. Our intent was to provide the community with free diapers so that they did not have to worry about that essential item for their baby. Our impact was that now every baby in that neighborhood is in urgent care with a diaper rash. That is not what we set out to do. How would we know, how to do that better? We would have to gather that feedback from families, listen to families. Hey, we gave you diapers. How'd it go? Oh, it actually went terrible. My baby ended up with a rash. Thank you for the diapers. Next time, can we go with Huggies or Pampers? But without asking families, we would not have known it. We would have written all these pretty reports to all of our funders and say, hey, we gave out 8,000 diapers to families and they loved it. And that would have not been the truth because we did not go back and assess our impact. So are you aware of your impact? How are you measuring success? Families may have a different depiction of success. Are you asking families how successful they felt and why? And then how do you address or implement any changes that need to be made? Ooh, we will not only give out love diapers again, we will diversify our offering the next time we go out into this neighborhood. It's not a real situation, by the way, but it's just an example of what could happen if you are not truly considering and centering family voice and perspective. Your intent could be super on point and your impact could be way off. I'll give another example. If folks say, hey, let's give every family, let's say we did something, let's give every family a free 3-month stay vacation, right, at Wills Lodge, because they have a hotel and a water park, right? And then we're like, this is wonderful. This is what all families need. They need 3-month vacation. And then we do it, families go. And when these families get back home, they lost their job, they're evicted, they haven't paid no bills in 3 months, they haven't checked in. Whoa, that just caused like devastation, right? And we're like, wait, what you mean? Y'all didn't cross those T's and dot those I's before you left? That's kind of what happens a lot of times when folks come in with a savior mentality. They propose a solution and that solution didn't work. And then we go back and victim blame and we blame the family. Wait, why didn't you inform your landlord that you were going to be gone for 3 months? Right. So these are some things that we really need to take into consideration when working with families. It is different. But I really encourage folks to put procedure and protocol in that will help them measure their intent versus impact, and then go back and ensure that the impact that they think they are making is the impact that they are actually making on the families that they are serving. And last but certainly not least, I just want to remind everyone that these things take time. Building out this infrastructure to really include and value and respect families. It's a new phenomenon. Usually things were done around us and to us and for us and not with us. The movement of nothing about us without us has really taken off. And patience is also a form of action. Going back to the drawing board, redoing things, making mistakes are lessons learned. Failures are a part of progress, but I don't look at them as failures. I look at you either win or you learn how to do better. And so lend yourself grace. Rome was not built in a day. Leaving family voice out did not happen in a day, so it will not be resolved in a day. Advocate for what is needed, trickle in additional supports as needed. Take your time to build something really well, and don't beat yourself up if tomorrow you don't have the 65 families that Groundwork Ohio has, right? They had to take their time to engage with those families and bring them back to the table and keep them at the table. So lend yourself grace, make genuine effort, and pat yourself on the back for every single small win that you have. And I'm open for questions. I'm not sure how much time we have left, but we are located in Durham, North Carolina. That is our website, our general email address, and please follow us on social media. We try to really keep people updated on what we have going on through social media. And if there's time for questions, I am happy to answer. Well, thank you all.
Okay. Thank you again Joy, for your presentation and for your insight. If you do have any additional questions, we're going to ask that you put them in the chat, and we're going to try to reach those questions at the latter part of the webinar. So feel free that if you have any additional questions at this time to add them into the chat so that we can present those to Joy so that we can get those answered. At this time, I would like to introduce our panelists. We have some wonderful panelists. First off, we have Christian Davis, who is the founder and CEO of Cincinnati Parent Empowerment Network. She is also a community ambassador for our Family Action Network. We have Delaney Jones, community coordinator for Safe Baby Teen Court Team, Cuyahoga County. She is also a member of our Community Ambassadors Family Action Network. And then we have Camila Twyman, who is the Vice President of Community-Based and Education Services at the Buckeye Ranch. So we're going to have a few questions, and each panelist will get an opportunity to answer these questions. We're going to ask that you be patient with us through these questions and these answers, and each panelist will be given about 2.5 minutes to answer each one of these questions. And I will start off this question to Christian Davis. The first question that we have for you today is, what is your organization's role in serving families?
First off, just wanted to say thank you very much for inviting us, or inviting me to come in and speak. So the organization that I lead is called Cincinnati Parent Empowerment Network. We're the largest parent-led organization in Cincinnati. We have over 20,000 families that span across 4 different Ohio counties, as well as Kentucky, just because we sit very closely to Northern Kentucky. CPEN, we've really kind of like strategically placed our focus on families who reside in Cincinnati neighborhoods with low socioeconomic status, just because, you know, studies have shown that those families who do reside in those neighborhoods have the greatest needs. So we have a technology-driven community resource platform that aims to address like ongoing issues of unequal distribution of community and social assets, where marginalized groups can be found. So our primary goal is to increase community engagement, boosting family self-sufficiency, and improve social, educational, and economic vitality for each family that we serve. So behind the scenes, we kind of work with families in 5 key areas: resource coordination, parent and educational advocacy, housing mobility, family literacy, and 2-generational family coaching. All of those services are a direct result of our families stating that they needed those services. So we have incorporated parent voice into our foundation as to who we are as an organization and how we approach the work of refusing to accept inequitable systems disadvantaging families in Cincinnati.
Thank you for answering that. Delaney?
Yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Delaney. I am the community coordinator for the Safe Babies Court Team program in Cuyahoga County. And the Safe Babies Court Team program is an approach to serving families with children 0 to 3 years of age in out-of-home care. And it's really a local collaboration between the county's child welfare agency, the juvenile court, and the other key local young child serving programs like early childhood mental health providers and early intervention. So I'm the coordinator for the program here, and I'm really the only staff person involved in Safe Babies Court Team. The rest are existing staff from all of the other key involved agencies who have all committed to piloting this new approach with a small handful of families. So again, our target population for the program that we serve is families with children 0 to 3 that are under court jurisdiction. So usually meaning they're in foster care or some sort of other legal living arrangement with a relative. So all the professionals that are involved in the Safe Babies Court team strive to engage families in a collaborative way that focuses on really applying the science of early childhood brain development and best practices to our decision-making processes. So the team meets with each enrolled family in the program individually once a month to identify each family's unique strengths and goals and work towards timely permanency for the child, meaning we're working quickly and thoughtfully with the leadership of the parent to make sure that the children are not lingering in foster care. And towards stability for the whole family so that they do not have to come back to the attention of the child welfare system after case closure. And we also focus clinically through an intervention called child parent psychotherapy on helping the family through a healing process, healing the trauma that the child and the whole family may have experienced.
Thank you, Delaney. And we have Kamala.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and to share a little bit about the work that the Buckeye Ranch does. As an organization, we provide hope and healing through using trauma-informed and family-centered approaches. Over the last year, we have served just a little over 2,200 children, youth, and families through the work that we do. And through this work, we definitely span a spectrum of services. And so our programs include providing child welfare services, including foster care, as well as case management and partnering with Franklin County Children's Services to support those families who are, initially referred through their system. We also provide residential services, for youth who need out-of-home placement. And then within the last year, we were also recently awarded being a care managed entity through the Ohio RISE program, which is partnership between Aetna and Ohio Medicaid to be able to really look and shift the way that we serve, families, youth and children, especially those who are multi-system involved and or have at risk of out-of-home placement. Additionally, we also have some mental health programs where we're providing therapeutic treatment approaches for youth in the community through several community-based programs that really, we have some programs that focus and look at specific diagnoses or symptoms, or just really, really individualizing our treatment kind of based on that families and that youth and their experience. And then our last service line is around education. And so we have a couple of education programs. We provide day treatment through the Bonner Academy. And these are for youth who are really struggling in their homeschool setting. And so typically over a year, these kiddos are placed in our Bonner Academy and really able to focus on some social and emotional learning skills and strengthening that before they go back to their home schools. And then we also have a school-based program that partners with a number of districts in Central Ohio and providing integrated approaches in a school setting. Our goal with that is to look at all of the systems that contribute to the kids, including the school and the family, and really help bridge that homeschool communication and collaboration between schools and families.
Thank you, Kim. We're going to continue to the next question, and if we can keep this same order of answering the questions moving forward, and as each panelist finishes out their question, we can go straight to the next panelist. The second question is, from your perspective, what does a successful family engagement partnership look like to you? And this goes back to Christian.
So in my opinion, I would say that a successful family engagement partnership is one that continuously creates pathways in front and behind the scenes where the voices of families are elevated to a level that drives change. Families should continuously and always be viewed as everyday experts and should be continuously placed in a position to co-create partnerships as well as lead community conversations.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm going to echo like a lot of what Christian and Joy have already said, but successful family engagement to me doesn't look like the traditional professional to client relationship. It's more of an authentic partnership and a two-way street. The family is really in the driver's seat and is the expert of their own experience and direction. But both parties are here to bring kind of an equally important expertise to the table. So the person doing the family engagement brings their knowledge of resources and supports. The family brings their knowledge of their family's needs and goals. And some things that Joy said earlier really made me think when she discussed that you're only, are you only checking in with a family when you need them to do something, or are you genuinely checking in with them? And it made me reflect with our families. There's so much going on at once. And even though I'm usually in contact with each family almost every day, how often am I checking in with them just to see how they're doing without also needing to talk business and about what we need to be working on? Probably not a lot. So I appreciated that, Joy. Because like you said, responsible family engagement isn't transactional, it's relational. And if we're too focused on the tasks and not growing the relationship, then we won't get as far.
There's already been so much that's been said around family engagement that I think resonates. So I just have a little bit to add. I really resonated with a lot what Joy, shared about one, real, recognize real. And so sometimes the work that we do, families are in our care, not because necessarily that they are referring themselves. And that is, the case in some of the services that we provide. But even in that dynamic, I think families recognize when we're there and we're in our authentic selves, and we're there to help empower them. So really family engagement, even if it is a service that is not voluntary, is really about prioritizing the needs of the family. It's about understanding their values and their culture and empowering them to be active participants and making sure that they have a seat at the table when there are decisions being made about their lives. And making sure that they have a voice in that. And the other thing I want to add is really ensuring that, when we talk about family engagement, that piece around cultural responsivity and making sure that the work that we do aligns with families' values and their culture, and that we're framing the work that we do that aligns with their needs and the things that they need. And we're just not going about it, and like Joy framed it really perfectly in terms of being transactional, but we are curious about it and we're framing our work so that it really aligns with the things that our families need.
Thank you, ladies, for your insight on that particular question. Question number 3, this question is a 2-part question. The first part of this question is, what barriers have your organization witnessed that prevent family engagement? And then the second part to this question is, what efforts have been implemented to overcome these barriers with your organization?
So I guess I'll first say, from what we've noticed within our own organization, some of the barriers that families had, told us was time, location, and transportation. So CPN has opened up our second brick and mortar location, which is centrally located downtown business district. It's on the bus line. We have staff available to meet our families during the day, the evening, and weekend hours. And then we also have a phone where families can call or text 24/7 a day, 24/7 throughout the day, just because we know that parenting is like a 24/7 job. It is not just Monday through Friday. And so many of our families might have experienced challenges or barriers that go outside of the traditional Monday through Friday, hour or time frame. So we've opened up a line where we have parent advocates available 24/7 by phone or by text. So that was one way how we were able to eliminate or implement changes to the barriers that was originally posed in our previous location. But then I think just across the system, across community partner sectors, one of the barriers that we've noticed that we've witnessed that prevents family engagement would be our partners working in silos versus collaborating. And for whatever reason that may be, our organization has been very, very intentional about building healthy cross-sector partnerships and helping elevate the work of others or our partners who also support families in various different ways. So we've been able to try to take on a multifaceted approach to some of the barriers that we've noticed.
Yeah. There's a lot that I could discuss with this question. I'm going to try to keep it concise. Family engagement is, I think, particularly really difficult in the primary systems in which Safe Babies Court Team operates, like the juvenile court and child welfare systems. These are systems that are not voluntary. They're understandably not very trusted by the community. These are systems that have not been historically set up to serve families in the way that we've been discussing in this webinar. So families' mistrust is often conveyed to us through a range of emotions: anger, frustration, confusion, skepticism, questioning. These systems often have families in a position where they feel very vulnerable and feel like they don't have much control over their family situation. And there's really an inherent power imbalance that exists between us who are involved in the child protection process and families. And that power imbalance is very tangibly perceived by families. So these are all very tremendous barriers to family engagement, but there are things that Safe Babies Court does to try to address those barriers. So to answer kind of the second part of this question, one of the Safe Babies Court Team approaches core components is called meeting parents where they are. And this really means taking a trauma-informed lens to our engagement with families, really understanding where parents' own behavior could be the result of their own unresolved childhood trauma, therefore making our focus less on punitive action for non-compliance and more on trauma-informed healing for the whole family. So during our monthly family team meetings with each family in the program, we really move at their pace. We know that parents involved in the child welfare system really need the support of this sort of collaborative team to manage the really daunting list of things that they must do to prove their fitness as parents. So we don't ask them to juggle more than a small handful of tasks simultaneously. We delegate, we break down tasks into manageable steps so that the families can be successful. So a lot of what the Safe Babies Court Team approach has to do with is changing the culture of our work, engaging families. We operate really under the understanding that children do better when they're nested in a supportive family team, and likewise parents do better when they're nested in a supportive team, and that lasting behavioral change can only really occur in the context of a safe, trusted, and supporting relationship. So I think it's less to do with like our processes, our policies, and more so to do with that long-term changing of culture of the work. And lastly, I'll say that there's a huge emphasis in the Safe Babies Court program and approach on parent-peer mentorship. Our local program will be building this out soon, where there will be a dedicated staff who has lived experience in the child welfare system, who is part of each family's team. And I'm hopeful that having somebody on the team who can relate to parents on a level that we cannot will even further strengthen and better our engagement with families.
Some of the barriers that I'm going to mention somewhat overlap with a little bit what Delaney talked about in terms of those mandated services, because that really is a challenge. In our organization, again, we do case management for cases that are court involved and are not voluntary. We also get referrals for programs that are aimed at working with youth involved with the juvenile justice system. And so thinking about those referrals, and when families hit our front door, we're already facing some barriers, right? And so some of the strategies that we use, or the way that we approach, is really increasing that collaboration with those systems and sitting on some work groups so that, you know, we have some input when we think about how these kids are identified and how they're, you know, referred, and how our programs are communicated to these families, even if they're mandated. And so being able to be part of some of these work groups has been helpful with that. And we're also looking at programming to do some early identification. So we definitely want to be part of engaging and disrupting the process when we have families who are at risk of out-of-home placement. And we would love to capture some of these children, youth, and families a bit earlier. So part of our approach has been, how do we kind of expand our continuum of care so we're not just, you know, intervening when we see these high needs and high risk. The other barrier that I want to think about in terms of when we look at behavioral health and mental health services is, unfortunately, families have to tell their stories so many times, right? So if they're involved with child welfare, they come in through the court, or they're, referred through a school, they've told their story so many times, and by the time they get to the therapist, it's their fourth or fifth time that they have to tell this story. And that can, really delay progress when we're thinking about mental health and behavioral health treatment. Christian spoke about silos earlier. And unfortunately, it's not just in your community, Christian. We face some of those same barriers related to silos. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do is really, how do we increase collaboration and break down those silos so that, maybe our families are not having to repeat those stories over and over again. With that dynamic too, we're looking at how difficult it can be sometimes for families to get mental health and behavioral health services. Just really figuring out, like, how do I enter the system of care? How do I get my kids the services that they need? And one of the things that the Buckeye Ranch implemented a few years ago is a same-day access program, which really began to pull down some barriers in terms of getting families in so that they can at least start the assessment for services and not have to figure that out, or figure out when the appointment is and when it works with, their schedules. But being able to just walk in and get an assessment has reduced some barriers in terms of families being able to access mental health care.
Thank you, ladies, for expounding on that two-part question. I have one more question, and it says, have you or your organization identified any state policies in Ohio that could better support family engagement?
So I guess from our one of the policies that we've kind of stumbled across was the Ohio Department of Education's their parent and family involvement policy, which really just states that families should have a continuous active role, both of like school board meetings, committee meetings, PTOs, PTAs, and that the school, each individual school should prioritize that. But taking a step further, we are really kind of shifting our focus to really help the families and the parents that we work with kind of transform from parents to parent leaders. One of the ways that we do that is making sure that our families are not only connected to, but serve active roles at organizations such as the Ohio State University's, their statewide family engagement center that has a state advocacy council that is a diverse panel of Ohio public school parents, grandparents, caregivers, school leaders, community organizations, and stakeholders kind of coming together to share perspectives and ideas concerning resources available for Ohio families. Within that organization, they also have a family to family podcast. So this allows our families and Ohio families across the state to be able to share their voice and share their experiences as it relates to tackling some challenges and or triumphs when addressing like childcare or special education or adolescent emotional or mental health and parental and educational advocacy. So just having a platform to be able to share their voice with other families throughout the state. But then also, we also have partnered with NAMI Ohio. They have a peer support specialist that is a free service for Ohio families so that they have someone where they can meet with one-on-one and they can help them navigate through multifaceted systems. So our local jobs and family services system, our educational system, the mental health system, childcare systems, so whatever that looks like. But then in addition to that, parents who are interested can also receive a state recognized certified credential in becoming a parent support specialist for other families. And the only requirement with that is that you're a parent with similar experiences. So those are some of the some of the pathways that we're creating, but really just kind of focusing on that, making sure that families are involved across multifaceted systems.
I'm going to respond to this question not with a concrete policy issue, but more of a general systems and funding issue. Hopefully that's okay, but I want to mention it because from where I'm seated, it's the biggest systems barrier to family engagement in my program. I'm sure this issue exists across all counties in Ohio as well, not just Cuyahoga. Which is the difficulties related to workforce capacity across all of the professions that Safe Baby's Court team is embedded in, especially child welfare and early childhood mental health. So due to, constraints around funding, lack of strong funnels into these workforces, we really hugely lack the type of strong, skilled, sizable workforce that we need to be really successfully serving these families. And children and families really suffer because of our systems being overloaded and professionals overworked. So I think we really need to address the workforce issue here if we want to be successfully engaging and empowering families.
Thank you, Delaney. That was one of the things on my list as well. So I won't expound too much. The only thing I want to add to the workforce shortage when we think about that. So Delaney mentioned funding, and one of the biggest barriers when we think about, especially for mental health providers who we're able to pay them through reimbursement of services, right? So we're looking at Medicaid rates and insurance rates. We can't really compete and pay folks more if we don't have increased rates. And so that, I'll just add that one thing. That was one of the things that I was going to mention. And also in relation to insurance, one of the challenges that we see is, we talk a lot about the social determinants of health and looking at where socioeconomic status plays in that. And I have seen those barriers for our middle class families though. And so when we think about community-based services, if you have private insurance or commercial insurance, those don't typically cover school-based services or community-based services. And when we're talking about family engagement, oftentimes meeting families where they're at in the community, in their home, in the school is the best way to get that engagement and help move them through. And if we have a whole, system that doesn't reimburse for those services, and then we have a whole population or group who really isn't able to access those services. And when I talked about early identification, that creates a barrier for those families. And so they're not able to access that level of care and can't get help until they hit that higher acuity. So I wanted to throw that out there. And then a specific policy, I know earlier I referenced Ohio Rise a lot, and they really have brought a wealth of services and a paradigm shift into our community. So we're still navigating that. But one of the things that was identified through our child welfare team is the ability to provide respite placement. So there is this rule or this policy that respite providers, I want to make sure I get this right, so I want to read my notes. So there's a requirement for a respite provider that the child must have a pre-existing relationship with a foster parent or have a sibling placed there. And so we've already talked about the workforce shortage, and if we're continuing to narrow down who can be eligible to be a respite provider, then it really isn't going to be accessible. And so I know the rule was probably put in place for some protections. And I think Joy talked about this a little bit earlier. We have to kind of like widen the lens a little bit at times to look at, is this rule really helpful, or are we excluding more people? So yeah, those are just the things that I wanted to identify as we think about policy and practices in our community.
Thank you to our panelists for answering those questions. And now we are entering into the Q&A section for our keynote speaker and our panelists. I do have a question here, and this was in relation to Joy. And I would like if every panelist and the keynote speaker is able to answer this question, I would like to get insight from everyone on this particular one. Joy mentioned leadership development and opportunities for family. How are each one of you increasing your family's opportunities as engagement increases? And I know Christian talked a little bit about this in the last statement that she was making, but we just want to get some insight, and we'll start with Joy and then move through the panelists in regards to this particular question.
Opportunities for like leadership training and engagement. So yeah, good question. I appreciate it. So what we're doing is we partner with folks who kind of already have that curricula and that expertise. So for example, we work with Moms Rising chapter that's here in our state, and they have some really concrete storytelling resources to help families kind of get their story really succinct and not tell all your business, but hit key points, that sort of thing. So we'll work with them. What we do is we sit down with like their trainers and we say, hey, what's your training like? Okay, we would never say that. Well, let's adapt that. Let's change that. Let's do that. Let's add these words. If y'all don't notice, I kind of talk in slang a lot. So we kind of, switch the words up and work alongside folks who have those resources to get that information out to our families. And we're also, we're only 2 years old, y'all. So we're making a lot of things. So we're in the process of creating what we call an EBB ambassador group. And these are families who have taken our services, love our services, excited about spreading the word for our services. So take a cohort of those families and really give them an extra layer of how we do our work, how we're funded, what advocacy points we have to sustain our operations, and equip them with that information so that they could be official ambassadors of our work. And we also host what we call listening sessions. So we'll pick a topic and we'll listen, and take that back based off the recommendations we hear. If people say, hey, I really want more public speaking skills. Hey, I really want more storytelling skills. We go and we seek partners who have expertise in that, and we collaborate in order to get that information to our parents.
So I guess just to add on to some of the ways that I had mentioned earlier. So we have a really good relationship with our local community college. Our local community college offers some free adult education that are like non-degree, but they might come out with like a short-term certificate. So we definitely refer our families there. Also, at our local adult education workforce development center, there's also some opportunities through there that might focus on like public speaking, or, it could be things like resume building, or it could be things like, how to, I think there was a class like how to illustrate your story in a way that resonates with others or something. And so those kind of classes work great, especially as we are encouraging our families to reach out to like local and state level policymakers to be able to do some amazing work and have some conversations. Then we're able to position them a little bit better by connecting them to work that's already being done.
Yeah, I think that there are a number of ways that the Safe Babies Court program tries to incorporate kind of growing opportunities for leadership and empowerment. The first one that I'm going to mention is pretty simple, but it is in a system that's traditionally really hierarchical and punitive. It's actually a big paradigm shift, which is that in our family team meetings, one of my biggest focuses is helping the family really like find their voice and make the agenda with me and almost co-facilitate the meeting in some ways with me so that they really feel like they're a leader at the table. When they're at the table with a bunch of, 10, 12 different service providers and professionals, going into the family team meeting space at first feels really intimidating for a lot of our families. So part of my role is helping them find their voice and their leadership just in that space. Another thing that I'll mention is often families will identify a barrier that they're experiencing in their case that also all the other families in the program are experiencing. So it's a systems issue. Like, for example, when a family's visit has to be canceled because we couldn't line up transportation for the child to get there. So we'll discuss not only problem solving for their individual situation, but I'll also discuss with them how this is a systems issue and how I can help them find ways to become advocates to the right people when the time is right and when they feel they have the capacity and interest in that. So kind of helping them become their own, I'm an advocate for them, but helping them become their own advocate as well.
Through our therapeutic programs, the majority of the programs we have definitely not just have a heavy family-centered approach, but there are some programs where we're focused on our work a little bit more with the caregivers. And so through that approach, similar to what Delaney mentioned, we're helping identify some specific barriers and help strengthening your skills around advocacy, communication. We might use some strategies such as role playing, agenda setting, and really helping them increase some of those skills when it comes to working with systems such as child welfare court or the school system. So that's really the primary way in which we're supporting and empowering families through navigating some of the systems. And then our child welfare programs also have some additional parent training and coaching programs to help increase and strengthen some of their skills as well.
Thank you very much, ladies, for your insight on that particular question that was presented to us. I don't see any additional questions in our chat. So I just want to say thank you to all of you all. And I just want to go to the next slide and move forward. I'm not going to hold up any more additional time. So this is in our slide. It says, if we can listen and genuinely engage, there's an army out there to be motivated. And so I just wanted, the whole purpose of this was really to encourage everyone to continue to be intentional in your engagement with families. It is extremely important that we do this. And the Center for Family Voice, we felt like this was very important. This was a very important topic to really have a discussion about family engagement and the challenges that we are faced with, especially during the times post-COVID. And so I just thank everyone again for participating. I thank everyone for coming. I would like to also thank the Groundwork team. I appreciate the Groundwork team very much, and the opportunity to be connected to such a wonderful organization that has a mission and a vision to make sure that we're advocating for our families and our young children, and also doing the work, not just talking about the work, but doing the work. And so we are on the ground doing that. And to our keynote and panelists, once again, just thank you for being a part of this webinar. We appreciate your insight and expertise in this, and we just encourage you all to continue to find a way to engage with our families, be creative, thinking outside the box when we're looking at the family dynamics and what we can do to make sure that our family voices are heard. And thank you once again to everyone. Go visit our Groundwork website, and this video, this webinar will also be available to you on our website later on this evening or maybe tomorrow morning, but continue to look out for that, and you can revisit this wonderful conversation on engagement. Thank you once again.